Hey, what's up guys? I'm KBHD here and welcome back to part 2 of the Hackintosh Pro project. Let's do this. Alright, so for those of you who may be new or missed part 1, bam, there it is, it's annotated, or it's also the first link in the description below the like button, but basically, this is the project to build a beast of a video editing machine for the new 2013 year. And the main idea of this rig is for it to be able to dual boot Mac OS X Mountain Lion and the latest version of Windows, which we decided Windows 8. So it's going to be an absolute beast of a rig, and basically what I'm going over in this video is all the parts that are officially now decided are going to be in this build. I have them all laid out in front of me, and these aren't including, the little accessories like, Bluetooth adapters and a Wi-Fi card and things like that, but this is the core, this is the main beast and brains, really, of the machine that are going to help it work. So I'm going to go ahead and go over all these things now and let you know why I chose them and how they work. All the links to all the parts that I'm going over are in the description down below. So I actually got all of them from Amazon, which is pretty convenient. So all the links below will be the links to where I got these. Let's begin. First is the processor, which you could say is the beating heart of the rig. This is the Intel Core i7-3930K. It is a 6-core processor with multi-threading, so thanks to Intel it'll perform like a 12-core, and it has a stock base clock speed of 3.2 gigahertz, but we will be overclocking this guy, so stay tuned. That'll have more information about it in later videos, but basically this is going to be an absolute beast. It is a socket 2011 CPU, which means there will be no speed steps, so it'll basically be running full blast all the time and overclocked, which is why we'll be getting to the cooler in a second. But also, this is just an overall awesome processor for things like not only video editing, but the actual rendering, just production overall in general. And for someone like me with a workflow in Premiere and After Effects, this is an absolute beast. And also, actually that's all I had to say. Yeah. It's gotten great reviews. People love this thing. So I mentioned overclocking, and you're going to want to have a high-quality cooling solution for your CPU when you're overclocking, and this is the Corsair H80i. I love the red and black packaging, but this is going to be what keeps our CPU cool. Now, this is a closed-loop water cooling system. It's close to the H100i, but this only has one radiator, which goes in the back of the case, fits in the case that I'll be using, which I also am going to go over. But basically, this is what's going to keep it cool, and this is what I think is a pretty darn high-quality cooling solution. Closed loop water cooling, pretty much a mandatory thing if you're going to be overclocking. So yeah, that's what we're going to be using for the CPU cooler. The motherboard is also sort of the heart of the experience, and for this we're going to be using Asus's Sabertooth X79 motherboard. Again, socket 2011 stuff, and this is an absolute beast of a board. If you saw what's like written all over this box, I mean, this is a huge box, first of all. And it's not the prettiest motherboard in the world, but it's made with really tough components, very durable, military grade stuff inside. I don't know what that means in terms of durability for a motherboard, but hey, better, it just works for me. It has 8 RAM DIMMs, so you'll be able to use up to 64 gigs of RAM if you feel like it. I'll get to the RAM in a minute, but this is overall a really high quality board. Plenty of expansion, plenty of PCI, plenty of SATA 6 gigabit per second stuff. This is just a really high quality board, and again, it's important because this is compatible with Mac OS X Mountain Lion, so we'll be able to dual boot thanks to a lot of the parts in this board. So the RAM is pretty inexpensive nowadays, so we went with 2 16 gig kits of the Corsair Vengeance RAM, which gives us a total of 8 sticks of RAM and 32 gigs of RAM. And I know some people will just think that 32 gigs is way too much RAM. 16 gigs is what I was using before was plenty. But for using, especially switching now, like I said, to After Effects plus Premiere, the more RAM you can throw at these programs, the better. So if you're going to make a beast of a video editing rig, you're going to want to throw as much RAM as these programs as possible, and this is what I'm going to be doing with 32 gigs of RAM. If you really want to, you can get a whole bunch of 8 gig DIMMs and put 64 gigs of RAM in. No compatibility will be affected. You can do that with the Hackintosh. So that's what I'm using for the RAM. The GeForce GTX 670 Windforce Overclocked Edition GPU is going to be a pretty impressive part of this build. This is a few percentage points below the GTX 680, but this is a hell of a card right here. This is the graphics card we're going to be using with the Hackintosh Pro. This card has been an insanely good performer, but it's also really important to mention that I'm not much of a gamer, and even though I'm installing Windows on this, and I might do some light gaming, and I'll do some gaming benchmarks to prove that this is a great gaming card, but this is a really great card for the Hackintosh for video editing. This has more than 1,000 CUDA cores that Adobe products can take advantage of to offset some of the load for certain applications and certain tasks to the graphics card. So this will take some load off of the CPU, and this will be an extremely good card for video stuff. If you're editing video, producing video, check out this card. It's got a really quiet card as well. It has custom cooling, 3 very silent fans on it, and it's an overall excellent performer, even better than some of the workstation cards that NVIDIA makes. and that's why I picked this over those. Now, a lot of headway has been made in terms of storage over the past couple of months, and storage is a big deal in this build, and that's why we'll be going with 3 OCZ Vertex 4 SSDs, and these are each as you can see, or you maybe not be able to see, but these are 128 gigabytes each. And I can't really say too much else about this until the next video, but to be blunt, we're going to be doing some RAID with these, so stay tuned if you're interested. But dual booting Windows and OS X and having RAID is going to be really awesome. You basically double your data speeds with RAID 0, so I'll get a lot more into that, and there's some steps we have to go through to enable it, but know that these are OCZ Vertex 4 SSDs. Our power supply is a fully modular Fractal Design Newton. This is our highest end 1000 watt power supply, fully modular, and a lot of people immediately will assume that 1000 watts is way more than you need, and it probably is, but the thing is, I would rather have way more power than I need than just barely a little bit more than I need. And the reason for that is expansion. Part of the reason I'm doing this over a Mac Pro is if I want to put more storage in it later, if I want to add graphics cards later, if I want to change out the CPU, if I want to add higher power drawing components, I won't have to change this part. This part is pretty much going to stay in it for as long as I use this build, or until it fails, basically. So this is a 1000 watt power supply, and basically when I'm idling, I'm probably going to be using less than 500 watts, but I'm definitely going to go with a high-end power supply just because, well, overkill is better than underkill for pretty much everything inside a build like this. So that's why I'm going with this guy. Last but not least is the case, and that's the Fractal Design Define R4. I love this case. I've gone over it. I showed it in part 1 and also some other concept parts of the build, but basically the Define is an incredibly good-looking case. It's kind of a nice minimalist plus functional case. It's got a lot of room in the inside for our cooler, for our motherboard, for our fans, and for some other things I'm going to be adding, like a fan controller and a card reader and things like that. But it's an overall excellent case, and I'm definitely happy to be using it. It's a little bit different dimensions than the Mac Pro. Some people were suggesting I use a Mac Pro case, but again, I do want to have the most amount of room for expansion. So things like PCI slots were important. Things like the USB headers up in the front of the case, very useful stuff. So the Define R4 is going to be the case. And that's all the parts I'm using in the Hackintosh Pro. Overall, it's looking very promising, and I'm gonna turn the camera off and basically start building it immediately. So look forward to the next video, or in fact, give a thumbs up if you're ready for the next video, because if I know you guys are interested, I'll definitely crank it out a little bit faster. But thank you for watching this video, part 2 of the Hackintosh Pro project. Again, if you missed part 1, that link is below. If you wanna see all the parts, those links are below, and more information is coming soon. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.